The Rebel Capitalist Show. Okay, now I just did a whiteboard video on the Fed and auditing the Fed. And I know you've done a lot of work on this. So can you explain the work that you've done and kind of the partial audit you got of the Fed and the results of that audit?
Yes, because it is, for me and what I've done in politics has had a big impact. Because I got fascinated with Austrian economics and the monetary system actually back in the 60s. And there were predictions, and people did follow the Austrian school, and there were predictions made that, the Bretton Woods would break down. So I paid a lot of attention. And then on August 15th, 1971, there was a big announcement by Nixon. The Bretton Woods fell down, and there was no more gold standard, and the dollar could not be convertible even by foreigners into gold. And that meant the $35 an ounce gold was no longer there. But because of the chaos that it caused with the wage and price control, we had a terrible decade. It motivated me to speak out. It didn't motivate me to want to be a congressman or anything like that. It was more like that nobody's talking about this. This is important. Monetary policy is really an important subject. It's key to a healthy economy. So I did that, and then there was nobody wanting to run for office as a Republican in 1974. So I put my name down, and I was surprised because a year later, then in 75, I was elected to Congress. But the main issue was the gold and the monetary system. But I, immediately got into that and decided that the way to get attention is to show that nobody knows what's going on. We have to audit the Federal Reserve. And that's what I worked on for many years. Later on, as I was in and out of Congress, but in the 80s, we started this group with Campaign for Liberty because that was their key issue that they promoted. And we were able to galvanize enough grassroots support for the issue of money, and that we would gather around this whole project of telling people why they should audit the Fed. And we were able to get it passed in the House of Representatives a couple times. So that to me was astounding, because it wasn't because I had any political clout or legislative clout. It was because the grassroots woke up and told their members of Congress, yes, you should support Ron Paul and get an audit of the Federal Reserve, which we continue to do. Campaign for Liberty still exists, and that is one of their main functions, is trying to call attention. People say, well, why shouldn't it be just get rid of the Fed? Of course, we want to get rid of the Fed, but the audit is the link. You can get a lot more people to sign up and call attention to them. And my thoughts are, if you get a true audit of the Fed and know what they're doing, people will say, why do they exist? We need to get rid of them.
Right, exactly. Now, was there a partial audit done back in 2011 or so, or is this just something we're still...
Yeah, there was, but it's sort of the part of the Fed that is generally public knowledge, the management, but not on how the money's spent. The most protected things they have is the foreign exchanges, the way they deal with foreign governments and foreign banks, which was like $15 trillion worth in 08 and 09 during the recession at that time. And you don't know who gets the money and where it goes. But what they were doing, they were talking about management money, salaries and different things like that. But it had nothing to do with policy. I was, on the monetary policy subcommittee, on the banking committee, but I would have never been allowed to go to, a Federal Reserve meeting, an open market meeting like they're having today. No, they're not going to. It's a secret organization. It was established, of course, by the Congress, but it's very, very secret. It's one of the strongest, if not the strongest arm of the deep state, because if you can control a currency which is considered the reserve currency of the world, very, very powerful. And you can do a lot of dumb things, and you can print a lot of money, but eventually it comes unglued. And I think that's what's happening around the world today, and why the dollar is currently going down and gold is going up.
Those are great points. As far as the Federal Reserve, who do you think has more control over the Fed? Is it really a private institution or a group of individuals, or do you think it's more influenced by the government?
That's interesting, because I think there's sometimes a misconception on it, because they'll say, well, just, you can't look at it because it's a private institution. And I substitute another word from it. It's a secret institution by
Right.
private people, because
Right.
it's not private like you think of a private institution or a private business, because it was, the Federal Reserve Act was an act of Congress, and the appointments still go through the Senate, and so it is very much public. The Congress, technically speaking, can end the Fed because they legislated it, but it's not going to happen because this deep state, which has all the influence behind the scenes, they dictate policy, and they were probably, instigators in having the Federal Reserve brought into being in 1913. So it's controlled by individuals who are very secretive. They have meetings and they will announce things, but it's all a cover up. But
Right.
most of the time, you can figure out what they're doing right now. They're struggling to keep the economy together by propping up the stock market, and that's where most of their attention is going right now, because they have a job on their hands.